back at it again. I don't know about you, but I got a call in the middle of the night to come up to Lumon to do some kind of maintenance business. I mean, the life of a janitor is never done, apparently.
I was like, where are you going with this?
I mean, look, I've got my bed scarf on. I was ready to chill out, and they're all like, hey, come up here and deal with some doors or some kind of nonsense. Anyway, guys, welcome back to A Clean Sweep, a Lumon Janitor podcast. I'm just kidding. But that would be a good podcast name, I think. I don't know. Anyway, guys, you're here. Welcome to the You Are a Severance podcast with your hosts, Rodnesha Green, and my co-host, Callie Thomas.
Hello.
This is the real thing.
This is the real thing.
Although, let us know if you'd like us to make A Clean Sweep, a Lumon Janitor podcast. Can be a side podcast if you like. Maybe that could be patron affiliated. Get all the inside dirt. Get it? Oh, boom.
Somebody stop her.
The puns just keep on coming. Guys, we are going to take a look at episode 6 of season 1 entitled Hide and Seek. That's what's on the agenda for today. Ooh. It's gonna be a wild and crazy time. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Y'all, this is when we kick it into high gear. I mean, the pedal is to the metal, and we are going to be flooring it straight through to the end of this season. So just get ready. You know, put on your big boy and big girl and big person pants and just hold on for the ride. But before we get into the details of this episode, I did just want to take a little time to just kind of assess what we're looking at today. The episode is entitled Hide and Seek, which I found particularly interesting. And it just got me thinking about that classic kids game, Hide and Seek. I mean, Callie, when's the last time you played hide and seek?
I work with small children, so I actually still play hide and seek quite frequently.
Well, just so you guys know, there are several versions of this game, as we've already alluded to, even within our own experience. Some of them have different names. There is a game called Sardines, which is a variant of hide and seek. It says that one child is hiding in this game and everyone else is seeking that child. The child hides while the others count with their eyes closed. Then the children scatter, searching for the one missing child. If one child finds the one person hiding, then they join them in their hiding position. The next person finds the two hiders together. They also join. So then it's like you're becoming a can of sardines.
That's
so I guess the objective is to not be the last person who finds the missing person.
So if the first person doesn't choose a hiding spot good enough for multiple people, then it doesn't go far, I bet.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah, I wonder what happens when it's like, we've maxed out on the people that can hide here.
Right.
Maybe it's just a race to join them before being the last person. Like, don't be last.
Yes, yeah.
Anyway, that was one that I found interesting. There's another one called Secret Wave. It says one child is a seeker, counts with their eyes closed, everyone else is hiding. The seeker goes to look for the others, and when they find anyone, that person joins them in the seeking. So yeah, that's kind of like collecting seekers. Like, now you've got to help me find all the others. Says there is a twist, though. If the new seeker is able to spot another child that is hiding before the main seeker, then the two children can do a secret wave to each other. As long as the original seeker doesn't see this, then that child that was hiding can begin to now run away and hide again. So that's interesting.
So like, okay, I see you, but they don't. Here's your signal to go find a new spot so they don't find you. So you're like a double agent. If you're
I guess that's why it's called
like helping them, but not really helping them.
It's like, I'll join your team. Get out of here. Get out.
Save yourselves.
So that's another one. There's hide and seek jail. I think I've played a version of this, or maybe I played it with tag where there's a jail. The aim for the seeker is to get everyone in jail. However, the children that are hiding and free can go and free other people in the jail by sneaking over and tagging them one by one. So I think I've played tag this way, but not necessarily hide and seek. But I guess it's kind of the same.
Yeah, it's like the capture the flag element of the jail. Yeah. You do jailbreak and like just get a bunch of people at once. But then, okay, so you get found and tagged, because like, what if the seeker turns around and just sees someone trying to go free everyone from afar? They've found them, right? Or do they have to tag them?
It does not say, because it just says when they see someone, or when they find someone, they send them to jail. So I don't know if the objective is not to be seen, because maybe once you are seen, you do go to jail. I don't know.
It makes me want to get a bunch of adults together and play hide and seek.
That would be fun. Although it makes me think of that movie Tag, where the adults were playing the like forever long game of tag since they were kids, and they're like ruining each other's lives playing it as adults, like tagging people at their wedding.
Not that extreme, but I just mean like, well, I don't have the opportunity to play with older kids. I play with really little kids, as we've established earlier. little kids don't really know how to play hide and seek, right?
That's true. The one thing that would be interesting about playing hide and seek with adults is like you'd have to be in a space that can hide an adult.
Yeah.
Because children, it's easy for children to dip behind things. They're tiny, but we are not so tiny anymore. So it's like, where would you go to play hide and seek? They need a course. They need an adult course that could be like hide and seek.
Yeah, like hide and seek in the type of place you would play laser tag in.
Mm-hmm. Or like, not capture the flag. What do you call it? Paintball.
Yeah.
Like that type of course.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone is good at building spaces or would like to turn their laser tag and or paintball course into a big game of hide and seek for adults, you know, maybe we put that on. Who knows? Anyway, this article has several other versions. There's hide and seek with objects, hide and seek codes. It's a whole bunch of stuff. But what we need to seek out this episode is what everyone is hiding in the world of Lumon and Severance. And that is how I'm going to spin this into our breakdowns.
Nicely done. Well, let's get into it. So episode 6, hide and seek. All's fair in love and baby goats. After a wild ride last episode, everyone seems to be looking to the horizon for hope, love, and wisdom. Helly and Mark inform the team of the findings from their health walk adventure, while Bert and Irving find a secret place for their love to bloom. Aww. And then Devin finds that there's more to the richest lady in Babyland than she originally suspected. Unfortunately, exciting moments don't mitigate the bad ones. Poor Miss Casey was sent to the break room for leaving Helly's side. Not to mention, Miss Cobell puts all the MDR kids in timeout so they can think about what they've done, or until they hit their quota, whichever comes first. But kids will be kids, and these kids are quick to rebel. MDR makes one last field trip to O&D where Mark rouses the throng of workers with an emphatic speech, and Dylan once again puts his nose where it doesn't belong and snatches an eerie laminated card from one of the O&D files.
Dylan.
This leads Milchek to assume that Dylan is taking work home, so he takes it upon himself to employ a quick overtime contingency protocol to wake any Dylan up and outie Dylan's home. But guess who got out of the house for a change? It's Mark, on a date with Alexa somehow. This date seems to be going better, complete with dinner and a back alley punk show. Clearly, this is enough to rev Alexa's engine, but will Mark be satisfied with this turn of events? No. He immediately decides to run straight into danger by agreeing to finally meet with the mysterious blocked caller who's been haunting Petey's phone.
And that is our summary. Oh, we'll get into it, but let's talk about our cast. So this episode, we've got a lot of guest stars and co-stars. It's full of faces popping in and out, familiar faces, new faces. For our guest stars, we have playing Gabby Arteta, once again, Nora Dale. Playing Ragabi, we have Karen Aldridge. Mr. Grainer is back, played by Michael Cumpsty, and Alexa is back again, played by Nikki M. James. Our co-stars for this episode include Elizabeth, played by Rachel Addington, Angelo Arteta, played by Ethan Flower, and we have June Kilmer's entire band. So we have June Kilmer, played by Cassidy Layton, the lead singer, played by Michael Chiazzo. Our bassist is played by Margaret Chardiet. Drummer is played by Charles Henry Wood. Guitarist Ty Miller. Dylan's son, dun dun dun, is played by Blaze James Gorman. Guy at Venue, who was quite rude, was played by Jonathan Iglesias. We have Felicia, who is back once again, played by Claudia Robinson, and Waiter, played by Griffin Stanton Amison. Very packed episode with lots of people, y'all. The lead writer on this one is Amanda Overton, which I don't know if we've seen her yet.
No, I think this is a new name for the series so far.
I think so. And then, of course, Dan Erickson and Anna Oyong Munch, staff writing it up. And then this episode is directed by Aoife McArdle. I always like saying her name. Aoife McArdle. I gotta say it the Irish way, which I'm probably not doing a very good job at. Anyway, and that is our behind the scenes cast of players for episode 6. Let's get into our breakdown, baby.
So this cold open. What? What?
This cold open.
Okay, so we open with Cobell turning Petey's chip into a necklace. Like she's putting it in a little capsule thing and then putting it on.
So weird.
And then the phone rings and it's Mr. Grainer. And he tells her that the hacking of the chip has been traced to their own technology, Lumon technology. And it's believed to be traced to someone by the name of Ragabi. This is the first time we've heard this name. We don't know who this is. And then Harmony leaves the room, and this room looks like all white brick walls.
It looks like an old-timey hospital, y'all, or an asylum or something.
Yeah, it does. It does. With the metal bed and like the fluorescent light above it too. And then she kneels in front of a shrine of Kier, and it's got like pictures of their old salves and like cuttings from old newspapers. And then it's also got these like childlike posters that it looks like a child has cut out letters from construction paper and made posters of all the like 9 values. And it's just so bizarre.
Okay, before I even get, because I did go frame by frame to look at these close-up images in this shrine, because I was like, there's got to be details. There's got to be things in this. What is going on? And we'll go into that. But before we get into that, can we talk about these pigtails that Harmony Cobell, well, Mrs. Selvig, or whoever, I don't even know at this point, is rocking? Like, what is with these pigtails? Everything about this scene seems like an homage to something in her past. She's wearing like this turtleneck and like a hospital gown type, a nightgown situation. And like we said, the room looks very antiquated. It just seems like she's stuck in this moment in time that we don't know about from eons ago.
Yeah, it's like part medical, like you said, like looks like a very old hospital or something. And then part makes me think of like a monastery, like she's a nun, like she's very covered up. I'm not sure like what her deal is. I was also trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, is this really her, or does she stay in her Miss Selvig character at all times to make sure? Because it seems like, I mean, Miss Selvig is a weird old lady, so it seems like on par with that character and not so much with Miss Cobell. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what we're getting here, whichever one is the real one.
Well, let's go into these frame by frame scenes. So if you guys watch the episode and want to do a little deep dive yourself, you can. But the first thing, and this is all happening, these images are being underscored by Cobell doing a type of prayer of sorts, or mantra or meditation or whatever, where she's basically saying, "Tame in me the tempers for, and build in me the..."
Do you want the full quote?
Sure.
"Tame in me the tempers 4, that I may serve thee evermore. Place in me the values 9, that I may feel thy touch divine."
There it is. Yeah. So as she's doing that, we're seeing all these little flashes within the shrine. The first thing we see is a picture of a young girl with pigtails and a uniform, and she is standing next to a sign that says the Myrtle Egan School for Girls, founded in 1952. So I'm going to say it's safe to say that this is a photo of Harmony, Cobell Selvig, whatever, because again, like the pigtail thing is the same. She's got that stern kind of face. The uniform, even though the photo is kind of antiquated, it looks like the uniform is the color scheme we see within Lumon, that kind of neutral blue, green type thing. So yeah, so that's the first thing. So we can maybe assume that this is how Harmony grew up, in the school for girls founded by the Egans. And then the next image we get is a close-up of a jester mask, and then it looks like it's kind of paper mache together, so it definitely looks like a hand-done situation. We know from the painting that we saw in the wellness center that this is one of the reflections of the 4 tempers, and behind it, if you zoom in, you can see a little note card that says verve, and it has like the definition of verve, which is one of the 9 values.
Yeah.
The next image we get is, I can't tell if this is a matchbook or an old-timey business card or what, but it looks like something from old-timey Kier, 1850s. It says Lumon Industries, high-quality pharmaceutical interventions. It has the address that says 345 East Main Street, Kier, PE. So this is a question I have. Where is PE? That is not a state initial. PA is Pennsylvania. So my first question when I saw that was, where is Kier, PE? Because that is not a state.
Are they in Canada somewhere?
That was my next question. And PE is sometimes referred to for Prince Edward Island.
Yeah.
And that is just north of Maine. But I found that interesting because I was like, does Prince Edward Island sometimes Is there a part of it that might be on the border of America, like Maine? I don't know. I was just trying to figure out locale, and you're going to hear me reference this a lot, guys, because I'm really trying to pinpoint where the heck they are in this universe.
Yeah, I have not been able to figure it out. And we'll discuss in future episodes what Lumen's reach is
Mm-hmm.
too, because it's definitely not isolated to wherever Cure PE is.
Right. Because again, if this is in Canada, then we're dealing with international laws and
Yeah.
international business practices and things like that, because they do reference places in the United States. So I was like, I'm
Yes.
confused.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know where we are in this fictional world. Who knows? Maybe it'll turn out in this universe that there is a state with the initials PE that is just made up fictitious for this place. I don't know. But I feel like no. I feel like these writers are smarter than that. So I guess time will tell.
Interesting.
Moving on. The next image we get in this montage is a close up of the probity value point, and we only see a little bit of the definition. It says, you will never progress in perfecting your imperfect until you ... So there's some words that are cut off that we don't get to see in that full statement. But the next image we get is a close up of what looks like maybe a breathing tube. And there is a hospital tag on the tube, and it says Cobell, Charlotte, date of birth 3/17/44. So Harmony's mother, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Could be somebody else, another relative, maybe a sister, maybe an aunt. But I'm willing to bet probably mom, but we do not have that confirmed. And then the final image we get, and honestly, it would probably take me too much time to delve through it, but we get a final image of Harmony kneeling before the shrine. There's a big old photo of a young Keir Egan. Within that framed photo, there is a general admission ticket to the Carnival, the 77th annual Carnival. Weird.
Chaos.
It looks like there's a handwritten letter in that frame or next to that framed photo of Keir. There's a trophy in the upper corner. There's some ribbons, like prize ribbons within there. It looks like a diploma from the Myrtle Egan School for Girls that's also in there. Mm-hmm. We have another paper mache mask that looks like the ram or the goat from the Four Tempers imagery. Baby goats. And then I cannot see what some of the stuff says because it's just too out of focus. But it looks like just more like kind of prize ribbons. There's some article clippings. There's another value card for wit. More Keir statuette type of things. And yeah, that's pretty much what we get in this little setup. And that is all we have before we go to our credits. Lots of little clue drops.
I think we definitely learned that Harmony has a longer history with the Egans than her job, right? If she went to Myrtle Egan's school. And Myrtle Egan is the second CEO, so that's far back. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you said, the other name is possibly her mom. So maybe there's some kind of feeling of being indebted to the Egans and Lumon because they possibly manufactured something that saved her mom's life. If there's like a breathing tube or something, I don't know. Very, very interesting because she does seem to be worshiping Keir.
Yeah, it's weird because, again, with the breathing tube thing, if that is something that is connected to the Egans and to Lumon, I would conjecture that it has something to do with her mother's maybe wrongful death, because why would you keep that? And if that is the case and it is a Lumon device, wouldn't you have a negative association with Lumon versus a positive one?
Well, that's why I don't think it's something negative for that reason. I think it must be something that helped her to a point. Unless we did say this in one of the previous episodes when we were talking about like why she's so determined to find all this evidence about reintegration before going to the board. Maybe she's playing the long game to overthrow them. So maybe it is something negative and it's like fueling her hate fire.
And because again, like you said, it would have to be either something that saved her life or saved a relative's life or something that just was a turning point. Whatever it is, it clearly must have been a turning point for her in her relationship to the Egans and to Lumon. But like you said, clearly we know that she has a long history with this family, with this company. She has clearly been indoctrinated from an early age. I also need to get a pinpoint on Harmony's age.
Yeah.
Because if we are in present day, I mean, we already saw that James Egan is the CEO since mid-2000s on. So I'm going to presume that brings us to present day. And if she went to school there in the 50s, and it looks like in this photo she's at least 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
How old is she?
Yeah.
Like,
right. What kind of salves do they be making?
right?
Like, you look
You
good.
look real good. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and do the math right now, but I'm just like,
Yeah, I was like, what is that math? Well, okay. Well, my grandmother was born in 31 and she just turned 91. So that would put Cobell in her 80s if she was born in the 40s and went to that school, in the 50s.
right? Which don't make no sense.
Yeah, don't make no sense.
So now I'm like, wait, is the picture of Harmony or is it maybe of her mother?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Because I'm like, that would make her too old for how she looks on the show, unless, again, she's drinking some kind of youth potion. But like, if it is her mother who went to that school, and maybe the pigtails are like an honoring my mother type of thing. Like maybe her mom grew up, went through the Myrtle Egan school, and I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's just the cold open. Let's move it along. We could sit with this for a while thinking through it all. Oh, I saw your note too before we move on where you were saying, does she sleep in her basement? I was wondering about that.
Right, because it's very like cold and dungeony, and there is the bed there too. So I'm like, what is this place? Does she sleep down there?
And when she walks over to the shrine, it's definitely nearby that area, and you can see the stairs going upstairs. So it's like, yeah, is she down in the basement? Does she sleep in the basement? Is this on the main floor and she just has a room downstairs and doesn't ever go upstairs? I had the same question. I'm like, what's upstairs then if she's not up there?
Right.
But it probably is, now that I think about it, because her home is the same design as Mark's, it probably is her basement.
Right. It's just like more finished than his, but finished very weirdly.
The aesthetic is all... The vibe is off. The vibe's off. Let's move on. All right, guys. We're moving on to the next sequence. It is New Day, New Dawn. Morning is here. We see Mark, who is flying back down to the basement for this dang phone again. Only this time, when he retrieves it from the box he had it stored in, he takes the battery out, he takes it up to the trash, and he chucks it in the trash outside.
And he throws it away in somebody else's trash. Important. And he drives a little bit up.
That's right, before he throws it away. Which, now that you say that, I have questions, because I just thought maybe he just drove up to his trash can and chucked it. If he threw it away in someone else's trash, who else's trash? Nobody else lives there.
Nobody else lives there. It's him and Miss Sullivan. Yeah, I don't know.
Because that trash can was definitely full, unless they're just using all the trash cans in the neighborhood because nobody else is there.
But I guess. I don't know. I assumed it was somebody else's because his are right. Earlier in the season, they show all four because they're having that back and forth about her putting the wrong trash can out at the wrong time. And it's right at the foot of his driveway. But he's like on the road when he does this.
This also makes me think now, knowing that no one else lives on that dang street. How are they having so many? I mean, I know that it's Selvig clearly just trying to find ways to like have interactions with Mark, but it's like, if I were Mark, I'd be like, you have the whole street to put your cans out. Why do they have to be next to mine? You have the whole street. You could put it to the left, to the right. They're gonna pick it up. No one else is here.
We know the development never filled up, but there has to be other people, right? There has to be some other people.
Every time they do those outdoor shots, I'm always looking for cars in other driveways. I'm always looking because I'm like thinking the same thing. Like there has to be someone else that lives on the street. I've only ever seen Mark's car, Cobell's car, and then when Alexa had her little sleepover, her car. But I have seen nobody else's. So unless they have garages, which I haven't paid attention to see if there are garages, but I have seen no one else's car on that street. Every time it's just dead empty. Anyway, so we're heading to work. We're back at Lumon. After we see that scene with Mark, we immediately cut to Bert and Irv. Bert and Irving, Bert and Ernie. And Bert brings Irv to looks like a little faux plant storage room. Because I definitely looked, those plants are not real. And it would make sense that it be a place that Bert would know about since he is optics and design. I'm sure putting certain fake ficuses in certain spaces falls into that criteria. So anyway, he brings Irving to this little secret room, and he was like, nobody else knows about it. It's just a little place for us, a little place we can get away to. And it's super cute the way everything's framed. Like, from an imagery stance, it works on so many levels because we've got this greenery that makes it look like there's life and freshness and like revitalization, but then it's all fake. So it's like, dang. Aww. Just crushes your dreams. Like, because on one hand, it's just like, oh, this is so uplifting. And then you're like, but it's all fake. It's not real.
Yep.
Man, I tell you, Bert has game. Bert's over here like, say, this Lumon manual don't say nothing about lip to lip stuff. And Irving's just like, oh, but Bert, no fraternization. I mean, it discourages romantic workplace relationships. And he's like, well, then we can't be romantic. I was just like,
Right?
I can't.
How about a non-romantic lip kiss touching situation?
It's like, I cannot. I want to know what Bert's life is on the outside. Homeboy seems to have quite a bit of game. He seems to talk a real good game. But they just stand there and they hold hands and they like lean against each other and just have a moment. And Bert's just like, just stay here with me. Just be with me. And it's cutesy. So we get that nice little palate cleanser. And then from there, we head over to check out what's happening with Devin. She's out walking her baby in the snow. Take that baby inside. It's too cold.
I mean, I thought the same thing too. And then I was like, see, that's my Southern California
Yeah.
privilege.
Yep.
It's not like you're not going to ever go outside with your baby if
For
you
the whole
live
winter.
someplace go outside, right? So I guess, yeah, I mean, the baby was bundled up.
That's true.
But that was my first thought too. I was like, baby inside.
It's cold. Yep, that's Southern California and Texas for you guys. That's our origins here. We don't do snow, we don't do cold. But she's outside. She, looks down the hill and she recognizes a face. It's Gabby, the rich lady in baby camp, and she starts waving and homegirl just kind of side eyes and goes right back to watching her kids. And Devin's like, you aren't just gonna ignore me. So she goes down to talk to her face to face, and she's like, oh, he looks like a William. And Gabby says his name's Bradley, actually. And she's just like, not William? Okay. But she basically reintroduces herself. It's me from the cabins. And Gabby's just kind of like nodding her head like, oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Clearly doesn't know who Devin is. She clearly doesn't remember. And I think she's a little bit afraid. Like, why is this
right? She's looking like this crazy woman is rolling up on me, trying to touch my baby. I don't know her. And then her husband, or we presume her husband, comes up, introduces himself. He says he's Angelo Arteta. And they shake hands. They do a little kind of small talk situation. But when she mentions the cabins and meeting his wife there, he looks real dodgy. And he's kind of like, I think it's time to go. Mm-hmm. Let's pack up the kids and head on out. And so they peace out. Devin's definitely standing there like, that was weird. What is with these guys? Like, she seemed perfectly fine at the cabins, and now she's being all strange.
One of my favorite Devin lines, she says, what the f*** they walk away.
And then apologizes to her baby. So that is that first set of sequences or scene sequences. Each of these scenes are just kind of setting up a lot of stuff is askew, stuff is off, a little left of center, what's going on. And I mean, I don't know if you have much more to say outside of that.
Just your note, right? Because at this point, I think everyone is probably thinking, is Gabby Arteta severed, right? Because introduced her in baby camp, she seems to not be able to answer any questions about her life. And now she doesn't remember Devin. So it's like, wait a minute. And I think Devin her wheels are turning and she's like, She was very dodgy of life questions in baby camp. And now she doesn't remember a thing about baby camp, not even what she was going to name her own child.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the Gabby Arteta is severed camp. And I mean, I was already kind of throwing that out there at the cabin because she was being so like, I guess I have help with my kids. I don't really know. And I'm with Devin where I'm like, something's off. And I'm sure because Devin has a brother who is severed, that she's probably keyed in a little more clearly to those signs of like detachment.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I guess we'll see what she discovers. So moving on. This segment starts off with our favorite, Rickon. Well, it's Mark reading from Rickon's book again, but we're in chapter 29 now, and the chapter is entitled Camaraderie. I have to read.
Please read it, because I hate it.
Put on my Rickon voice. Okay, here we go. This is how the chapter opens. What is camaraderie? Most linguists agree it comes from the Latin camera, which means a device used to take a photograph. And of course, the best photographs are not of individuals, but of groups of happy friends who love each other deeply. But I think camaraderie is more than smiling together in photos. It's standing together in hard times. It's recognizing a common struggle in another person and reaching out to offer them a loving hand.
So once again, Rickon is talking out of his ass. He's taking just a tiny bit of some kind of correct information and then taking poetic.
Right.
Because yes, camaraderie comes from the Latin word camera. Camera doesn't mean a device to take a photograph. It means it means to obscure, or it means a chamber. So like camaraderie has more to do with like having roommates, like sharing a room, than it does being friends with someone. But he's like, you know what? Cameras take photos, and photos of friends are cool. So let's talk about that. Like, no, those are not correct.
I just wish we could be inside the brain of Rickon when he is in writing mode. Because like you said, it's like he gets parts of information and then just decides to make up the rest. Like it's like Mad Libs for him. Like, okay, let me just throw in a noun and a verb and an adjective and I got it. Like, because I mean, we saw that with the whole kelp thing. It's like, okay, you got a piece of that. Then you just decided to make up the rest. We're just going to hang it from the ceiling. It's like, that's not at all what that is. But it's like he works in reverse. Like, I want to talk about friends standing together, but how do I make this mean what I want it to mean? I know. Cameras, taking pictures, friends take pictures, happy.
You following me here?
But what I love about this is that this is like the perfect amount of digestible information for the innies. Yeah. They have no reference for anything. They don't know what is or isn't correct, but all of it makes them feel empowered. And I don't know what that says for anyone who is a fan or a reader of Rickon's books.
It kind of fits with everything we've been saying up to this point about all the ways innies are childlike and they do all these things to infantilize them. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, they can consume this kind of dumbed down philosophy that Rickon is providing. The common man's philosophy.
Common man's philosophy. Maybe that's the title of his next book, Common Man's Philosophy. As I am common, and the root for common is to come on. And we all need to come on. Rickon, if you need a ghostwriter, get up, clean sweep. Lumon Janitors podcast. We're going to call that back all. Anyway, that is empowering Mark. That's fueling him up for the day. Clearly, this is going to have an impact on him later, and we'll see how. But we move over and we see Irv talking to the group later. He's suggesting that they do more field trips to O&D, no personal agenda. Just want to unite the departments the way Kier intended. You know, that old chestnut. And they are discussing this. Helly agrees, but she's thinking more in the way of, if we talk to everybody else, we can figure out what the crap is going on in here. Yeah. So she's like, sure, I'm on board. Let's talk to more O&D folks. Let's get this puzzle solved.
I love this little exchange because she's like, yeah, and once we figure out the rest of the map, and Irving cuts her off, like, to be clear, I do not approve of the mapping. And she's like, right. Anyway, we need to go in O&D and do the mapping.
Heard.
Blah, like I was saying.
Heard, understood. I love the way she acknowledges too, like, okay, Irv, yes, we all know, goody two shoes, you're not breaking rules. We will go on a mental health walk again, and whatever happens, happens, you know? Mm-hmm. So they're in the break room, not the scary break room, but the minimal food break room. And
the kitchenette. They did show that. Right. They did show, I think it was.
It does say?
They finally showed the placard on the outside of the door. It's the kitchenette.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So they're all sitting in the kitchenette discussing. What I love about this moment is Mark and Helly start kind of having a little dialogue to themselves. And they're like making little jokes. And Mark's like, haha, that sounds just like me. And she's like, I know. And he's like, you got me. And like, I love that it cuts over to Dylan, who clocks everything, doesn't miss a beat. And he's looking at these two like, y'all two, come on. Am I the only one not fraternizing in this place?
I know, right? Dylan really wants to be fraternizing with somebody.
Dylan tried to get a fraternization going with Miss Casey. She wasn't down for that, I suppose. But he's clocking the looks between the two of them, and he's just like, oh man, now I gotta monitor y'all. And so as soon as Helly leaves the room and gives him a little last look over his shoulder, Mark's just like cheesing. My favorite line is that Dylan is like, hey, you two fraternizing? And Mark's like, what? No, I'm just a concerned team leader who cares about his employees and da-da-da. And he's like, man, look at you all dewy-mouthed and like, you never smile at me that way. And he's like, I smile all the time. And Irving says, actually, Mark, you are pretty sparing with the facial encouragement.
It's so good.
And that had me dying.
Such a good way to say it. Facial encouragement. Oh, Irv.
I'm holding on to that one. But basically, everybody's saying, like, you weren't cheesing this hard when it was just us bros. And now all of a sudden, you're like extra invested. Anyway, that's happening. And then we cut back over to Mark, who gets called into.
Well, no, so remember Milchek interrupts them. It's like,
That's right.
hey, what are we talking about? Because they're all like laughing. And then Mark
That's right.
covers by saying, oh, we're just wondering where Miss Casey went. And so then it cuts to, I guess he's like, well, you can go discuss that with Miss Cobell. And then we find out that Miss Casey has been punished with the break room for having left Helly alone. And Mark is trying to, be like, but that's my fault. I thought she needed a mental health walk. Thought that's what we needed to do. And in that conversation, Cobell calls him out and was like, a mental health walk, just a walk around the other departments? What would you do in other departments? Because, of course, they're always watching.
Now, I found it funny, though, that she doesn't show that she saw them spying them baby goats.
Right.
She just shows them walking into the purple room, and she's like, what are you doing walking around other departments? So it's like, enough to let you know I see you, but not enough to give away the fact that I'm, like, always watching. I see everything.
Right.
Which, man, I want to know what Cobell's long game is. I'm truly... Like, what is her long game? What is her objective with Mark? She clearly wants to keep him on the leash, but a long enough leash where he can kind of roam, but not off the leash entirely, so she can yank him back if she needs. What is your game here, lady? What's going on? She is playing a game of chess that none of us can detect or see. But she gets wild in the scene. So she's chiding Mark about how he doesn't need to be nursemaid to all the refiners and they need to get their job done. Stop playing around and taking all these walks and wandering off when you're below quota. It's not your job to like be everybody's helper. And then Mark says, all right, well, what is my job? What is it we actually do here?
Oh, she was not happy.
Wrong question, Mark. It's like when that child gets snippy with their parent and they said... You got one more time to get smart with me. And she swung around and said, we serve Kier, you child. And then proceeded to go off on him some more. But straight up called him a child.
She leans forward and like slams her hands down on the desk and is like, we serve Kier, you child. She really acted like he asked the worst possible thing he could possibly ask her.
Right? Doesn't give him an answer, by the by. Or like that is the answer, but like doesn't explain anything. What do you do? What is our job? Right. She's like, your job is to get out of my face and go make quotas. Like that's pretty much the response. And then much like you do with a child who's smarting off to a parent, she says, and your hallway privileges revoked. No more wandering. Get in there and get to work. And, obviously only in this environment could this happen. Because if a person did that in the real world at a job to another adult, HR. Like, also, where is HR in this? Like, clearly there's no
Did they
human
erase
resources.
Their knowledge of what HR is? Because none of these people seem to have for an HR.
Must have.
But it's also like, brings back to early on, we were like, when are they doing their job when they're taking all these trips? Irving talking about, I'm going to go visit O&D in the other episode, and then was like, I'll be back at 1. And that was literally like 2 hours later. Bro, when are you doing your job? So clearly it's been affecting their work because she's like, you haven't hit quota.
I have so many questions about the quota, the work, time spent. I also am like, if you guys are just sorting numbers on the computer, why do you have anything that you can write on? What's the point? You don't need to write if all you're doing is clicking and grouping numbers and sorting them into bins. If that's your whole job, why are there pens and paper? Why,
why is there even a keyboard?
Why does that exist?
They don't do anything with the keyboard.
It's like, it should just be a little number pad.
Right.
Like basically like those old school trackball pads that they used to have where it was just like the arrows, numbers, and the little tracking ball. That's neither here nor there. So moving on. What's next?
Yeah. Okay, what's next? So, back in MDR, Helen and Dylan are having a little conversation about Miss Casey's absence. And Dylan's kind of like, oh, man. And to think I wore this shirt for Miss Casey. And Helly's like, you didn't even know who she was this morning when you put that shirt on. Like, that's not how severance works. And he goes, well, maybe love transcends severance. And Helly's like, do you really think that? And he goes, no. So Dylan just being Dylan. But then Dylan's like, hey, so, what's going on with you and Mark? And Helly's just like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you getting at? And another good Dylan.
Y'all, this if you guys want maximum Dylan, this is the episode where it's not like maximum angry Dylan, because maximum angry Dylan is like barbarity of optics and design. But if you want maximum like goofy, silly, this is.
And he's like, what about baby what do you guys do?
Baby
Goats?
goats.
And Helly's like, do you think baby goats is code for sex with Mark X? And he's like, is baby goats code for sex with Mark X? His face is just like, well, I mean, is it? You're
Is
gonna
it?
tell me? It's so good.
I just love before he even says that line, like when he's just alluding to, he's just looking at her like,
Come on,
you
you
know,
know.
baby goats. And she's just like, what? No, the baby goats are real. And he's like, okay,
So
sure.
good. But then Mark comes back and lets them know that Miss Casey got punished, and they're like, was that us? And then yeah, and then he lashes out because he's like, and we lost our hallway privileges, so no more visits to O&D. And of course that's directed to Irving because he's been the one that's been out and about as you know, the most of everyone. And Irving just like takes it gracefully and is like, you know what, Mark, I apologize. I've been setting a bad example as the senior most refiner. You know, I've been going too much. But then right in that moment, Mark's like, that, let's go again. And he's like, how do you get to O&D again? Which was just like, it's such a funny little switch because he was like,
yeah,
you know, I snapped at you, but I don't really mean that. I'm mad that she revoked our privileges because we have shit to do out in these hallways. Okay.
right. It was so interesting too that he deflected onto Irving because when Cobell called him out, she didn't show him footage of Irving at O&D. She showed him footage of himself. And then it's like he just instead chose to like displace that anger onto Irving. Like, you're out here wandering around and getting us in trouble. And it's like, actually, me too, you know, but he didn't own it. And I think when Irving did own it, he was just like, I'm being a, you know, like,
yeah. Irving called his bluff in that way. Like, no, it was my fault. And then, you know, they go to O&D, and I just love this scene because it's like a slow-mo, like walk with purpose, all four of them in the hallway going to O&D. It's so good.
So this caught my eye. There are two group shots, and they've had a few group shots, like obviously walking down the hall when they go to perpetuity. But this caught my eye in this particular one, wardrobe-wise. It's a wardrobe catch. Because I feel like this is the most cohesive they have looked as a group in any of their group walking scenes. Like, a lot of times, like maybe Dylan might be wearing like an olive green suit, or, you know, Mark might be wearing, you know, something else, and Helly's like wearing whatever color she wants. But I did take a screenshot of them walking down the hall, and it's like the first time where they're all kind of in a similar shade of blue. Like, Helly's skirt kind of matches, and in particular, Helly and Mark, they definitely coordinated their wardrobe. Helly's skirt matches the same color as Mark's jacket. Helly's shirt is the same shade of brown as Mark's tie. So I'm like, okay, we're definitely doing some visual storytelling where we're trying to be like, these guys? But even for Dylan, because Dylan's another one who kind of, he doesn't ever, I think, break the rules with dress code as much as Helly kind of does. And Helly's like not breaking it, but she's definitely like on the line. But Dylan tends to not want to fit in with the others as much. So like, he's usually in olive suits or tan suits or something like that, where he's not quite in the same blue shade family as maybe Mark and Irving are. So I just kind of noted in this moment that they're definitely trying to visually give us cues that like these guys are uniting. They're all kind of coming to find common ground with one another. And this is just a little, you know, storytelling representation in the visuals that we can give you guys that that's happening. And I just was like, I like it. I like it.
It's nice. Nice touch.
It's nice. I like it. So they head down to O&D. Those rebellious kids, you know, you just can't tame these kids. Yeah, try to tell them what to do, and they just don't listen. And they go down to talk to O&D. They just bust up in there.
First time all of MDR has visited O&D, right? Yep. Because Irv has been a bunch of times, and then Irv and Dylan went in Grim Barbarity of Optics and Design. But yeah, this is Mark and Helly's first time there. And it's like, MDR. These are our friends.
They are our friends. Welcome, MDR, to O&D. We have many questions, and I think we could help one another. Sorry, Christopher Walken's back. So the O&D team looks apprehensive because it's the first time it's been everyone from MDR, and you know there's been all these weird rumors about these teams and who's doing what and who's crazy and who isn't. So they naturally have some like reservation that everyone's there. But of course, Bert kind of mediates the exchange, and there's like this weird coming together of the houses, very Game of Thrones-esque thing, like we should unite the houses and MDR and O&D, and Bert and Mark are kind of sitting as the the head of household, so to speak. Mark has a little speech in there where, again, like I was saying earlier, he clearly was empowered by the camaraderie chapter of Rickon's book. So he's like, yeah, camaraderie, cameras, friends, pictures, let's get together. And so he has his own little Braveheart moment where he's just like, why won't they tell us what we're doing here? What are they so afraid of? And if Egan philosophy is illumination above all, and of course, Irving has to cut in and be like, it's actually beyond all,
Beyond all,
yeah.
but yes.
And he says, then why are we all down here still working in the dark? So that kind of triggers a little flame in everybody. So they're asking each other questions. I love that one of the O&D folks asks MDR, like, you guys are macrodata refinement. What are you refining? Nobody can answer. They're like,
nobody can answer.
Next question. Like,
yeah, and then it's very clear as they're throwing questions back and forth that no one has a clue what they're doing at Lumon. Neither side. O&D are in front of what looks like a bunch of 3D printers, and they're printing watering cans. And Bert is surmising that they're making supplies for the upper floors of Lumon for the executive offices. And then he's like, but some of the things we make are a little more aggressive. And one of the O&D people reveals that they were making hatchets before. So they make a wide variety of things down there. No answers, really.
None. And it's so like, what is going on? So nobody really knows what they do or why they do it. They just do it. That's the whole objective down here on the severed floor, is just do what we tell you to do. So we make hatchets, we make watering cans, who knows what, So everybody's very confused about what everybody's role is and how it contributes to Lumon. But they're hoping that maybe in coming together, they can figure it out. Now, while all this discussion is happening, Dylan, once again, just meanders off and nobody seems to notice. And I'm like, how? For the second time, this boy just says do and just,
As much as these people want to figure out what they're doing, Dylan's the only one walking around looking for answers, right? Because he's the one that found the painting in the Grim Barbarity episode, because he was wandering around while everyone was just distracted, just like talking and theorizing. He's like, I'm going to find some clues, okay? Y'all talk. I'm going to find some clues. So he started walking around and looking for stuff, and he finds what looks like, they remind me of, I have to do CPI training for work, crisis prevention and intervention. And they look like the infographics for how to do like blocks and kicks and stuff. So there's these little cards with different people showing different movements, and you can't really tell if they're aggressive in nature in the card, or it's hard. We don't get a good look at them. It's hard to tell what they are.
I did take a screenshot. So there's like 6 cards in the little tray. One of them's kind of obscured by the frame. Or actually 2 of them are, one of them is definitely obscured where we can't really see what's happening. The other 5, you can kind of look. So one of them looks like someone doing like a swinging, arm strike to someone's chest, like a hand
like
you just turn at the waist into someone's chest. There's another one. This one's the weirdest one to me that doesn't make sense, but it's like a more elongated card, and it's the 2. Oh, by the way, the men or people represented in these cards are wearing blue shirts and green shirts. And as we know, green has been for O&D and blue has been for MDR. So interesting. But the standing ideographic card is like 2 men, and the man in blue has his right hand on the man in green's shoulder, and the man in green has his right hand on the man in blue's head. I don't know what.
Yeah, and it's like the arrow is pushed down. So it's like, what is this? Are they like helping each other stretch? Is it a greeting? That like some of them seem more violent in nature than other. Like this one doesn't seem violent. I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is, all the other ones do seem violent. That's the only one that is like, I'm confused. I don't know if it's a subduing tactic, like push them to the ground, or I don't know. That one's confusing. The third one, it looks like the person in green is swinging in to do a chokehold on the person in blue.
Yeah.
And then the bottom left one is obscured. We can't see it. We just see an arrow kind of swinging up. And then the 5th card, we see the man in blue is doing another chokehold, but like where he's got both hands around the man in green's neck and is like forcing him down to the ground. But it's also like the arrows are indicating to close in on that person's throat.
Right.
And then the final card, we don't see fully, but we just see that the person in green is on the ground. The person in blue is over them with their hands around their neck, but we can't really see what's happening.
But not like in a choking, no, it's not shaped like the same way as the choke other ones that look like choking a little bit. It's kind of like
Yeah.
partial. It looks like partially it could be a step in CPR. It looks or I
Choke them
don't
out, then
know.
revive them. Like, yes.
Yeah, the first one that's like a karate chop move to the chest also just looks like warrior pose
It
stretching
does.
to me, and I'm not quite sure why the second person is there. Like
So you
it's
can
interesting.
jab your fingers into their chest. Yeah. It's very weird fighting
Or so they
styles
can
if it is
give you
fighting.
words of encouragement. Yeah, they're kind of dance movie, some of them too, like it's capoeira or something.
But yeah, so that's what we can see in the frame. It's very unclear what these cards are meant to represent or why, O&D has made them or what the purpose is of them. There's no like labels that clearly identify their intent.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly Dylan is just as confused by this as we are. So he just takes one of them and just shoves it in his pocket. As he's doing that, Milchick enters stage right, and once again with his creepy "What's going on, guys? Up to no good?" And
Yeah.
no one sees Dylan, fortunately, also unfortunately. So he just kind of slides the ideographic card in his pocket. Milchick comes to escort everyone back to MDR, and that's the end
Mm-hmm.
of the field trip. And of course, he's looking PO'd like, you guys seriously did this. We told you to stay.
Yeah, it's important to note that Cobell and Milchek knew they were on their way to OND as soon as they started moving. Like they start walking
Oh, that's
there,
true.
and Cobell's like on the radio, like Milchek, and Milchek's like, I'm seeing it. So they're both in their respective offices watching them up to this. So they really didn't have a
That's a
fighting
good
chance
point.
in on this mission. Like it was almost like I don't know if he's coming from really far away and that's why it takes a moment, or he's just like, let me let them get what they're going to get. And he's taking his time to meet them there because I feel like he could have cut them off.
So yeah, MDR gets escorted back to their office space, and guess who's waiting for them? Harmony Cobell. Speaking of Harmony, she is ready with a song, y'all. I died the first time I saw this. I was just like, what the hell? Like, what is this? It was so random. It had very morning announcements, Pledge of Allegiance vibes. Like, everyone stand, put your hand over your heart. And she just stands there, no warning. Like, guys, we're going to sing the Cure song because you guys need to be reminded. Milchick just walks in, stands off to the side. They walk in and see her, and she just belts it out.
I would like to sing it, so you're gonna have to hear it. Okay, ready?
Please,
Here it goes.
regale us.
Here, chosen one, Kier, Kier, brilliant one, Kier, brings the bounty to the plain, through the torment, through the rains, progress, knowledge, so no fear. Kier, chosen one, Kier.
Lovely. Very nice.
When I tell you I just watched that scene,
yeah,
just that scene so many times.
Over and over.
She said there's no warning. They just walk in. She's standing there, stern, very pissed, and then she just goes right into it. Their faces are like, what's happening? Okay.
So this makes me wonder, has she done this before? Do they know this song? Or are they confused because they're like, I've never heard this ever, never.
Right. Is this song part of orientation? Yeah. Or is this a new experience? I don't know.
Oh boy. Well, after she has her Star Spangled Banner moment, she proceeds to berate them about their antics. She goes up to Mark once again and is like, this is on you. Pack your bags and get ready for the break room, fella. And the next thing we see is Mark in Outie Mark mode, and we just see his hand on a dining table, and his knuckles is bruised
up. Yeah.
So this made me wonder, and I know we've talked about it before, does the break room change? Is it always the compunction statement, or is it other things?
Right. Other things happening.
Because they've talked about the bad soap, whatever that is. And now we've got knuckle bruises, and I don't know what that's owing to. We don't see it.
Right.
So are they doing the old school nuns with the rulers rapping on your hands type of thing? Right.
And does it have to do with like maybe how many times you've been to the break room in the past? Like, okay, your hands on this buzzer thing, we're assuming is something happening to their hands. Like when we saw Helly in the break room, wasn't enough. So now we're going to start smacking you. now we're gonna use the back. So like I don't know.
I do wonder.
Maybe the compunction statement is the same, but maybe they're doing something to you whenever you say it, not genuinely enough. I don't know. But he definitely was the victim of something.
It definitely gave me Harry Potter vibes with Dolores Umbridge, where she gives Harry the pen and he's writing, I must not tell
Yeah.
lies, and then it's like etching it into his
Yeah.
skin. I wonder, like you said, if that's what's happening with the compunction statement where they have to take it up a notch. Like, now we've got to get violent
Right.
for you to really feel sorry, because the buzzing clearly ain't doing, or whatever is happening with those little nodule things. So, but you know what, guys? Let's not talk about violence. Let's talk about love. Let's talk about good vibes only. Let's talk about feelings, because Mark's on a
Oh,
date
Lord.
somehow, again, somehow, with Alexa.
Girl,
Somehow.
What?
I said it before and I'll say it again. The dating in here must be real, real scant.
Right.
Because why are we giving this man another chance? Why?
Yeah, I don't understand it. Now, this date seems to be going a lot better than before. He's
True.
not throwing back the drinks. And I get it. Mark can be charming when he's sober, but also you know his history and you know he's not sober often. Yeah, but Alexa starts asking him about his late wife Gemma, and Mark lights up a little bit talking about her, and then he gets to a point where he feels like he's saying too much, like, oh, this is weird, I'm talking about her. And Alexa's like, no, it's healthy. And he's like, no, 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 no. And she goes, I haven't walked out on you yet. And I was like, girl, why though?
But why?
I don't get it. I don't.
I don't understand. And again, Mark, yes, he can be more charming when he's sober than not, but he's still not that charming. Not enough for be like, yeah, I'll do another date. And why not? Like,
Yeah.
Mark is awkward. Mark is in a weird headspace. Mark is usually throwing him back. That first date was so bad that I do not understand how a second date came of
All I can think is that Devin is the greatest wingman on the planet.
Right? That's a sister for you.
Yeah, because in the birthing cabins, she says, I think you might have another chance with Alexa. And he's like, no, not at all. You don't know how bad that date went. But she kind of, it's like it's knowingly, like she's already debriefed with Alexa about the date and has already started hyping her up for another one, maybe.
To Mark's credit, and I don't know if maybe Devin said, listen, if you go on another date with this girl, no drinking, you know, put on a nice sweater, put on some cologne, don't look like you just ran out of your house or woke up out of bed, like, try. So I don't know if it was of his volition or of, the encouragement of his sister, but he looks better than he did the first time. He looks more present. I checked their dinner table surroundings. He actually didn't have a drink in his area. He just had water. Alexa was the only one drinking wine. So I was like, okay, Mark, all right. We're putting in effort. A for effort. Great. Love it. Love that for you. But at the same time, it's just like, I wonder with Alexa, like, girl, what has you smitten so hard? Because I don't know. Anyway, but whatever. They have a nice time. They talk. It's awkward, but it's not as weird as it was the first time. And she's given him some grace to kind of just be cathartic and talk about his past. So I appreciate that she's like, I get it. You're a grieving widow. I'm not going to try to act like this person doesn't exist or it doesn't matter to you. If you need to talk about it, talk about it. So, it's a date. I love, though, that neither of us are on board. Like, I don't know if anyone else out there is like, Mark, Alexa, we're rooting for you. But I'm like, no.
Yeah, if you are, please explain it to us because I don't get it.
Maybe in a reality where this man has gone to therapy and is working through his trauma and those kind of things, and definitely in AA. But in this reality, I don't want it. I don't like it. I want better things for Alexa. I need her to love herself more.
Please. I feel like she has to be able to do better.
Oh, the excuse they gave him. Once again, she notices the bruised knuckles and she's like, what's going on there? And he's like, oh, I guess I had a weird incident changing out the water cooler jugs. And
she's like, jugs are heavy. Like, nobody questions it.
I would wonder to myself. But I mean, this is a man who clearly is not in a sober state most of the time. But I'm like, when you change a water cooler jug, and I've had to do that before, and it is heavy, and sometimes it gets weird. I think the worst that's happened is like I'd missed where you had to put it in, and then water gets all over the floor, and that's a mess.
Right.
But like, I'm trying to think, how do your knuckles get bruised from changing out a water cooler? Like,
right.
How's that happening? That's what I'd be wondering. Like, okay, you pick it up this way.
Right.
You maybe slide it in or slide it on, but how are my knuckles? And how, because it didn't show both hands. That's another thing. No. I mean, we don't know. Maybe the left hand also had some bruising too, but we only saw one hand. So I'm like, how did one hand get crushed and not the other?
And also just the fact that we've now seen in a short period of time Mark get injured at work twice. You have an office job. why are you getting injured so much?
And
Like, wouldn't you just be like, wait a minute, this can't be like, I'm not this clumsy in my Audi life. Is my innie hella clumsy? Like, I don't understand.
also, if this is the second injury that's happened on the job, where's workman's comp? Once again, where is HR? Because I'd be like, wow, it seems like a lot of incidents are happening to me on this, you said, basic office job.
Yeah, the first one was a head injury. That should have been a day off.
At minimum. So the fact that no one's asking more questions. Before we move on, I did want to make one mention because I completely forgot how when Mark goes to the break room, when he's still in work mode, we see him go down the hall of the break room. But as he's going in, Miss Casey is leaving her break room session. Mm-hmm. And here's my question. One, who was in the break room with Miss Casey? Because both Cobell and Milchick were with the MDR folks. So was it Grainer?
Mm-hmm. Right. So maybe, before we were thinking like, why is Milchick the one in the break room? But maybe it's not always him, maybe they rotate through depending on what the offense is.
So that was one question. The other question was, again, Cobell playing games, but it's like, why would they send Mark to the break room at the same time as Miss Casey leaving the break room? Mm-hmm. Like, I've never, in any of the break room exchanges that we've seen, it doesn't seem like they let people interact with other people.
Yeah.
It's like, clear the space, we're about to send one in. So we've never seen like Helly run into anyone going to the break room or whoever else going into the break room. It seems like they kind of try to make it an isolated situation. So I'm like, were they just not thinking? Like, oh crap, we have Miss Casey in there. Well, they're just gonna have to run into each other. Or is it intentional? Or why? Is it mind games? Like, oh, you're gonna see, like, you're responsible for her getting into the break room. Now you've got to watch her leave the break room. And is that more of the psychological torment factor?
It might be, but it also could just be like, damn, these people been cutting up. We don't usually have people in the break room this often. Right. Now we got two people back to back. Like maybe we need another break room. He's lucky Miss Casey was done, because if she was still going, would they have been able to send Mark to the break room, or would they have been like, Mark's punishment is more important?
See, that's the other thing too. It's like someone had to have signaled whoever was in the break room to let Miss Casey go, whether they were done or not.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's too coincidental a timing to be like, oh, she just happened to finish just as we sent Mark in. It's like, someone had to be like, hey, we're sending Mark to you and he needs the extra treatment or whatever. So wrap it up with Miss Casey because he's coming in. Like, it's got to be some kind of communication system like that happening. Anyway, just wanted to call attention to that because it was super eerie, odd moment. And then the fact that they had to like slide past each other awkwardly in that narrow hallway. I'm like, why does this hallway have to be so narrow? I guess you're usually only sending one person at a time, but like they're having to awkwardly like turn and be like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna scooch past you.
Very strange.
What else is going down in town?
Well, at this time, we're also outside with Devin, and she is researching more about the Artettas, so Gabby and Angelo. And she discovers that Angelo Artetta is a senator, and the articles are showing that he's very pro severance, pro the legalization of severance, meaning severance for the everyday man, not just within work, I guess. And he's apparently one of the leading people in the debate campaigning for severance, which, just fuels the idea that possibly his wife is severed regarding her pregnancies. Very interesting.
So basically, when Devin's doing her research, we get some close-ups on each of the articles. One of the pictures showed, it was a family photograph, and it noted that they lived in, I think, in Kier, and it was for Kier Life magazine.
Was that the one where there's a quote from Gabby Artetta that is very interesting? It's like, I should have written it down or taken a screenshot of that part.
That was the one photo that got blurred when I was trying to take the screenshot.
Oh, yeah, but she's saying something. It had something to do with her moving into a new space.
Yes. I wrote down that she was quoted saying that she was dealing with the frequently traumatic renovations.
Oh, right.
And so that was just such weird phrasing. It's like frequently traumatic. What?
Yeah. And it made me think again of like, okay, is he renovating their house while she's severed? And that's why it's traumatic, because just all of a sudden she comes home and it's changed. And it's like, I also have the question of, is she in her second form I should say, because it wouldn't necessarily be any and outy. Is it only at the birthing
Yeah.
cabin so she doesn't experience labor, or is it her entire pregnancy? So then it's like, okay, 9 months worth of renovations to the house.
I guess it depends, because I could see where she might not want to experience being pregnant
At
at
all.
all. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, I'm all down for being the model wife and having the 2.5 children and, being in the political public eye, but I don't actually want to experience having these babies. So it's possible
Right.
that maybe with each baby, they convert the house, renovate the house, add a room or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe. And like she's checked out for 9 months and then
Right.
all of a sudden,
And maybe in
you
this
know,
interview, her way of talking about how traumatic it is, because sure, that's got to be jarring. Your house changes from what feels like one day to the next. But if it is the full pregnancy, then what's the traumatic part? Now I have a baby and my body has
mhm,
gone through has gone through labor and I'm feeling what it feels like to have
yeah,
just given birth to a child, right? So
yeah,
that's probably what's traumatic, but like she can't talk about that in an interview. It would mess up her husband's platform for Severance.
right. But the point is, Devin definitely in seeing all of this about Angelo, it backs up her theory of like, I'm pretty sure his wife must be severed or something to that extent because he seems pretty hard up about it.
Yeah.
We don't get to see her really do much more formulating. At that point, Rickon shows up and she kind of closes the computer, doesn't say anything to him about the research. She just kind of
Mhm.
keeps it for herself.
Rickon comes in because he's bringing in the next lactation consultant. And I guess they've been trying out a few. And surprise, it's Mrs. Selvig dressed as a nurse. And she comes in describing what she'll do in her role. And she picks up little baby Eleanor, sweet Eleanor. And she reveals that I guess Mark had mentioned that Devin was having troubles. So she
Mm-hmm.
offered her services. The baby's crying and she starts rocking the baby and she's humming the Cure song to the
Yep,
baby.
indoctrination.
And the baby calms down. And so Devin and Rickon look at each other like, she's a godsend. This is the person we're going to hire. And you're just like, what the fuck is she doing there?
No,
What is
no, no.
happening?
Yeah, the many faces of Mrs. Selvig. Like, what is this woman's background? She a nurse now? Like, she's got scrubs. She knows how to do lactation consulting. Like, she
Right.
works with
So
babies.
the
What is?
best I can think of for Mrs. Selvig's backstory, because she mentions a store, she mentions teas, she makes cookies with lavender in them and weird like that. So maybe the store is some kind of like holistic healing
It has to be.
thing,
Yeah.
which I think there probably is a lot of overlap with some midwifery and doula stuff. So she could work in like, well,
Mm.
I can also help with lactation. And she does bring like a nipple butter salve thing for Devin to give to her. Yeah, it's just so strange.
Yeah, she's everywhere. She's everywhere doing everything. So now we cut over to another home. So we see a child that's sitting in front of a TV. By the by, whatever this kid is watching is insane. It's like crazy loud. It's got like thunderclaps and lightning and just looks straight up psycho nightmare fuel.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It's weird. Now, he is sitting there kind of with his eyes covered and he's counting. He's not counting in any logical way, but I mean, he
He's
looks like he's
on
five,
like
so.
749 or something. Like he's been
But he
counting
says
for a
like
long.
sometimes 7,042, 769. Like he's just saying numbers. He clearly does not know how to count to whatever he's trying to count to. So then we jump inside a closet and we see Dylan and Milchick in this closet. We are at Dylan's home. Now, this is the first time we've seen any glimpse of Dylan in his outie form. But what's wild is we're not going to get that today because Milchick's on the phone. And then all of a sudden we see that weird push in, push out that happens with Severance. And we hear the elevator bell too, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're talking to any Dylan, but we're in outie Dylan's home. And this is wild for Dylan because all he knows is going down the elevator and coming back up the elevator, and that's it. So he's in a new space.
Mm-hmm.
He's totally taken aback, like, is this my house? And he's looking around and just like, clothes and looking at everything. And I get it, like, totally new environment. He's never seen it before. He has no idea what he's really looking at. And Milchick's trying to like tap him in, like, hey, I need you to focus.
Yeah.
You took something. Took something from O&D. It's very important. We need it back. Did you sneak it out? Did you get it past the code detectors? Blah, blah, blah. And Dylan's like half paying attention and half not. And he's still like checking out everything in his space. And he's just like, yeah, I stuffed it behind the toilet. It's back there. I don't even know what it is.
Right.
He could care less about this card at this point, because now he's got a whole new focal point of like, wow, this is my life, or a glimpse of it. He's also confused how he's even here. And so Milchick tells him like, oh, we had to enact OTC contingency, protocol. It's something we do with innies when it's an emergency, and we had to wake you up outside of the Lumon floor or whatever. So this is news to Dylan. He's like, you never told us you could do that. You've never said that that's a thing you guys can do. And Milchick's just like, well, it's for emergencies. Anyway, where's the card? So once he tells him where it is, they're about to wrap it up. Next thing you know, this kid that's been outside counting runs inside the closet and screams, "Daddy," and tries to go for Dylan. Milchick, like an insane person, yoinks this child and starts like sternly yelling like, I told you to count to 1,000. You're supposed to do that. I was like, whoa.
Right.
Dylan, throw hands. Throw hands. I know you don't even know who this child is, but like, no, unacceptable.
She's just so shocked because the kid does get to him to hug him, right? He hugs him real quick, saying "Daddy," and then he's pulled off, and he's still trying to figure out. He was just figuring out like, oh, this is my wardrobe. Like, he's still processing one thing, and now he's like, a kid? What? But yeah,
a kid, and he called me daddy.
Yeah, Milchick was hostile and was like you said earlier, clearly this kid doesn't know how to count to 1,000. So what do you even, bro? What do you?
That was the dumbest ask ever. Dumbest. All I could think was, okay, Milchick, if you knew that you were about to roll through here, and here's the thing, like, clearly he wasn't completely solo missioning this, because whatever they do with the OTC contingency requires someone to be back on base to operate
radioing to that person.
Switches. Exactly. So you had to let someone else know what was going on. So why not get a second person to come with you? I don't know the mechanics of who deals with security and who knows what and who's in on what.
Right.
But I'm like, if you know this man has children and you're visiting him in his off hours, wouldn't you try to make sure we can secure the child? Or if nothing else, call ahead and be like, hey, Dylan, this is Mr. Milchick. We need to wake up your innie, and I know it's your off-peak time. Do you have your kids with you? Are you busy? Is there anything that you like, any way that you can put them in a special place so that we can, make sure to retain the boundaries of severance, blah, 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 blah. Like, clearly he did this in a rush and wasn't thinking it through. Because I'm like, you could have easily had Audi Dylan set up a space for his child to be in a less crazy way, in a more secure way, so that you can have a talk with his innie and find out what's going on.
A bigger question for me, though, is Dylan gave up this information so easily. If the overtime contingency is for emergencies, why not ask him at Lumon first?
That's a good point.
Why not see if he'll just give you the information? Why not threaten him with the break room at Lumon? I feel like Dylan would have told them had they just asked him.
Right.
And now they've traumatized his innie for no reason.
Right.
And his child,
and
too.
that's a good point. That's a good point, because you're right. He did give that information up super easy. And the way it happened made it seem like he needed that information right then and there. And then we come to find out that he doesn't even go looking for that card until the next day in the morning.
Right.
I guess maybe just because he knew where it wasn't urgent, but the way he approached Dylan made it seem like it was urgent. So the only thing I could think is if he was worried that he got it through security and maybe gave it to somebody, because that would be the only reason I would think, like, why rush it? Because he assumed that he got it out of Lumon.
Right.
He was like, I'm not even thinking it somewhere. I think you got it out. And I'm worried that maybe you've found a way to hand it off to somebody. Like, this is information maybe you've given to somebody. What did you do with it? So that's the only reason I can think why it happened the way it did. And it just so happened that he didn't do anything with it. But the way Milchick was coming at it was like, crap, if he got that card into the wrong hands, we're screwed. Even though nobody knows what the heck that card is or what it does.
Right. So, it has no words on it.
But the only thing I can think is, again, because of all the PD stuff,
right.
Is he worried that there's been a breach? Is he worried that someone else has been in contact or found another inside man or whatever? Because it otherwise doesn't make sense to do it at home.
Right.
And it was unnecessarily traumatizing for everyone. Yeah, that seems like such an extreme, because you are risking a lot of factors doing that. And I don't know if he thought Dylan was just such a simpleton that maybe he would just shrug it off, but that's a risky game, you know?
Right, because also if you think about the Audis know Mr. Milchick, that's their point person. Like if they call out sick or whatever, they interact with him. But I know they're not expecting this man to show up at their house. So wouldn't you be concerned about arousing questions from the Audi too?
Mm-hmm. And that's why I wonder, to even set this up, what was the call?
Yeah.
Like when you called Audi Dylan, what did you say? Like, hey, so we have a workplace emergency and your innie is involved and we need to speak with them regarding some sensitive information? Or I don't know, do you even mention that? Because you had to get him on board to be willing to let you come into his home during off-peak hours. So you had to imply that there was some kind of emergency, right?
Or worse, is this man just in his home? The whole thing is stressful.
It's very stressful. And everything is set up to be so claustrophobic that you feel claustrophobic too. Like you're in this closet,
Right.
You're trapped, you don't know what's going on. There's a kid, there's yelling, and then all of a sudden it's just over.
Yep.
So as soon as he gets back on the phone, he's like, end it. And we just see a switch flip and then Audi Dylan's back and he has no idea what even happened. Now, what's wild though is that Milchick is holding his son. Now he quickly switches back into that fake smile. And then Audi Dylan's just kind of like, are we done here? Grabs his kid and then just walks off. No questions, nothing. I would have even been concerned as a parent to, again, do that in my home. And I don't know what you're going to do with my child. How do I know? You're switching my brain off in my home and my child's there? I don't know. That just seems sketch.
It makes me wonder, is Audi Dylan a single dad? Is there more than one kid? Is it just him and his son? You know, was there somebody else who could have been watching, or there must not have been if he told the kid to count to 1,000? Like, so many questions.
I did see a Reddit where apparently somebody examined the closet space and said it looked like there were women's clothes in the closet to the left of Dylan.
Ooh.
I haven't had a chance to go back and look and confirm.
Interesting, because I guess just the layout of it, my eye is drawn to the right side. I guess because that's where Dylan looks.
His focus goes.
Left,
yep.
And the right side of the screen. So it's like all like cardigans and sweaters and stuff. So yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even look at the left side.
Same. So I was like, I'm going to have to go back and look at that. But basically, I guess that Redditor was like, I think he does have a partner or maybe a spouse or whatever. Because it looks like half the closet belongs to a woman. So time will tell. But this whole scene just had my blood pressure up. So once we leave there, we go back to Mark and Alexa. You would think maybe this is a reprieve or a downgrade, but somehow it's even more anxiety ridden because they're leaving the restaurant, which, sidebar, I noticed that the name of the fancy restaurant is Gerhardt's, which is another Egan.
Another Egan.
So they are leaving Gerhardt's restaurant.
Yeah, he's like, I guess we should call our cars.
So then he notices a poster on the wall. It looks like a rock band or a punk concert or something that's happening, and he recognizes Petey's daughter's face. So he asks Alexa, because I guess he realizes that it's not far, if they can go check it out. And she's just like, sure, why not? I'm game for whatever, clearly. So
again, why? Why are you entertaining this man?
And she could have easily just gone home.
Last time you went for a walk with him after eating, he accosted some protesters. So why are you doing this again?
And got real hostile. Exactly. Now you want to go to a random rock band down the street? Go home. Alexa, go home. So they walk down the street, they head to this band. It's definitely like just one of those, I don't know how to explain it, but it's very 70s punk, like where it's more about like rebellious protest punk. It's not like just some random show in a bar or whatever. Like it's very hardcore. It's in an alley. It seems like it's just one of those, like we set up somewhere in secret. We don't really talk about it. Mark gets chided by a guy there about no cameras. You're not supposed to record anything, no phones. Because he pulls it out to try to record Petey's daughter, and this dude gets real hostile with him, and it's like, hey, dummy, put your phone away, not allowed. He said much harsher words than that in a much more aggressive tone. But Mark's like, okay, cool, I'm chill, and puts it back in his pocket. So the band is singing, and I tracked the lyrics of the song, and so we see Petey's daughter, she's up there playing guitar. She's not the lead singer, but the singer's going, and the only lyrics I could get was like, I feel a callus on my heart because every day's the same, broken heart, broken spirit, skylarks, fires, smash a window, I don't know. And then that's when the guy starts yelling at Mark, so I don't know what he was saying there. And then it cuts back to the singer and he says, "You can make this all come true. Build a sky in my eye, that perfect blue. I hate you, Lumon. You took my first love. F you, Lumon. It's never enough. You think that you can fight me. You're wrong to even try me. F you, Lumon. I hate you, Lumon." And then everyone just starts chanting that from the audience. So I found it interesting because I was just like, wow, what is this singer's connection to Lumon? Because he's singing pretty impassioned about this and talking about you took my first love and all this stuff. And it could be fictional, but it seems like it's definitely not. It seems personal. When we later see Mark talking to June, and June or Mark's like, oh, I think your dad would love this. And she's like, how would you know? And then he says something to her about the show or the band, talking about Lumon or whatever. And she says, well, write from what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, oh, wait, is this her song that she wrote?
Yeah.
And the guy's just singing it. It would make more sense that it is a song that she wrote, especially, you took my first love and like, oh, my dad. It's like, oh, that's sad. Now it's sad. I mean, it would have been sad either way. But I thought the first line of the lyrics was interesting, where it said, I feel a callus on my heart because every day is the same. Mm-hmm. And I was like, is that her talking about like, how it's been since her dad passed away? Or is that like referencing maybe how her dad felt being severed? Or coming from the perspective of someone who is severed, like every day is the same. Broken heart, broken spirit. Who knows? But they had an interesting exchange, awkward as always. I don't know what Mark was expecting going there and talking to June. She's polite enough about it, but she's just kind of like, I don't know you. You don't know me.
Right.
You don't know my dad.
Are you here?
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
So somehow, after all this, Alexa's like, I'm super into this. I'm turned on. Don't know how or why. You just witnessed this weird exchange between the guy you're dating and some teenager.
Yeah, he tries to explain, like, I worked with her dad. He just died. I'm trying to figure it out. And that's the moment she felt like she needed to jump up and kiss him. I was like, that was the romantic moment, girl. He's like talking about his trauma.
Oh, boy.
And she's like, cuts him off. She interrupts him to kiss him. Alexa.
Maybe what? Alexa needs therapy too. It's seeming like this is a two-way street.
Alexa seems like the maybe I can fix him type.
As we said earlier, just left of center of like, why now? Why is this the moment? Anyway, moving on. Grainer shows up in the middle of the night at Cobell's house. He looks super weirded out by what Harmony's wearing. She's wearing the scrubs and the turtleneck. And he's just kind of like, are you a nurse or something? And she's like, what do you want? Like, she doesn't even respond. She's just like, what? And he's just like, we got a trace on, the technology used, and we may know where Ragabi is. Some people said that there's someone hanging out at Gans College, and the dean's like pointing everyone to look the other way, so it could be her. And she's just like, all right, well, find out if it's her and go get her. And Grainer's like, do you want to come with me? And she's like, I absolutely do not want to come with you. Like, she is giving Grainer zero time of day. I just wonder about their history so much because he's just, so like, hey, you want to come with? Let's do this, like,
right.
Maybe like the good old days, like our used to duo. And she's just like, no, I don't know. Leave, go. I don't want to do your weird shenanigans. Go find her, get it done. And then he's like, seriously though, are you a nurse? And she just like closes the door in his face.
Are you a nurse?
I think the first thing he asked is, what are you wearing? Like, what
right.
Is that?
She's like, I was doing some, I don't know if she didn't say undercover, but she was like, I was doing some digging or something like to that extent.
Weird, but Grainer goes to be the good old faithful lackey and takes off. So then we cut over to Mark and Alexa, and Alexa's just spending the night, I guess. And
at home with this man, girl. What? Okay. I mean, we're beating a dead horse now.
We are. So, Mark, because he's traumatized and not dealing with it, wakes up in the middle of the night. He has a weird flash dream about Petey, seeing his final moments before he collapses. And then he just pops up out of bed. And I guess he decides, you know what I need to do? I need to go get that phone out the trash. And I need to figure out what's going on with Petey. I can't just enjoy the nice evening I had with a really forgiving and patient woman. No, I can't enjoy this. I can't just let this be a nice moment. No, I got to go stir up trouble. So he goes down in the middle of the night, digs through the trash, finds the phone and the battery, puts it back together. I don't know how this phone is still active. There's been no charger. It has not been charged in days, weeks, most likely.
Right.
And it just powers up, doodle-doo.
Yep.
And of course, right in that moment, he gets a call and he answers it. He's all like, "Who is this?" And she's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Mark." And
No.
I don't know. No, she doesn't. He doesn't say.
I'm a friend of Petey's.
I'm a friend of Petey's. That's right.
Yeah.
She doesn't say her name, right? Or does she?
No, she doesn't say her
I
name.
didn't think so.
And she's like, "What did he tell you?" And Mark's like, "He didn't tell me anything." And then the woman's like, "Is this Mark Scout?" And Mark, it's so funny because Mark then hunches down and looks around immediately, like the person who's on the phone with him is watching him. He's like, creep the fuck out that she knows his name. And then she's like, "Can you meet me right now?"
And he does.
So yeah, that we go. He like gets in the car, right? He's ready to go. And at this point, we start seeing cuts between he's making his way to meet up with her, and back at Lumon in the middle of the night, we're seeing doors.
Team janitor, team maintenance crew
installing doors to the MDR entryway, which I didn't realize till this point that it wasn't like they were replacing other doors with new doors. Those doors
did not exist.
It was just an entryway. The doors didn't exist, and I hadn't noticed that before. So yeah, they're installing these doors, these super bulky, like high-tech doors, and then Mark is meeting with this woman at Gans College. So we put together, oh, it's got to be Ragabi, even though she hasn't said yet.
Yep.
And Gans College is where he actually used to be a professor. And she's like, "Yeah, I know that." And she's not given much information, but she's like, "You got to come with me so I can explain what's happening to you." And he's just like, "Well, I guess, because I want to know more." And the episode ends with her walking off. And it's like that moment of, am I going to follow?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the end of this episode. Why? So at this point, Mark's at a moment of decision. I mean, let's be real. He done already came this far. We know where this is going. Like, you're not just going to be like, "Yeah, actually, I think I should go home."
Yeah.
Come on.
So, yeah, at this point, we're just left with, like, who is Ragabi? We know she's connected with Lumon because they traced it back to Lumon Tech. So she's still doing something. Is she currently doing something with Lumon Tech? She used Lumon Tech to help Petey. What was her role at Lumon? Is she still at Lumon? And they're realizing that now they're going to fire her because she's doing something. We don't know yet. There's so many questions about this woman.
By the by, this has to be the most active evening we have witnessed to date. It's like Milchick's over here enacting OTC measures, Harmony's, chatting up Devin and playing nursemaid, Grainer's chasing down Ragabi, Mark's going to a punk show, then sleeping around, then sneaking out in the middle of the night. So much happening.
It's the most outie activity at one time. Like, it's a long stretch of just outies.
Where this will all go, who knows? Gotta tune in next week to find out, or next episode, depending on how you're listening to this. It could be binging it all. Yes, psycho. If you're binging this, you're wild. So anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in. This has been Hide and Seek. There has definitely been a lot of hiding and a lot of seeking. Well, anyway, we will be back next time where we will be covering Defiant Jazz. You guys, I am jazzed about this episode to come, and we will talk about it then. But in the meantime,
this has been the UUR. And remember, I haven't walked out on you yet.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the UUR with me, Rodnesha Green, and my co-host, Callie Thomas. You got a question for us? Want to talk theories, share memes, or maybe you just want to connect? You can follow us at the UUR Pod over on Blue Sky or Threads, or you can email us at theuurpod@gmail.com. See you soon. Annies unite!